Hello, in this video, I'll be showcasing the Vodeo ECS framework for game development with the Unity engine. So what you're seeing right now is the little sample demo that's included in the package for the framework. This sample is just a way of kind of showcasing all the different functionality of the ECS framework. So as you can see, there's like a network here of these sort of roads that these cubes are traveling on. The yellow cubes are going to random destinations. They're pathfinding their way around. And once they reach the destination that they're pathfinding to, they turn red and head back towards their home node, which is over there. But if we press space, we can change where the home node is. So it just moved to there, which will then affect the pathfinding. They'll start going here instead. So, there are thousands and thousands of these connections here and these pathfinding agents running at the same time, which is one of the main reasons why you might want to use an ECS framework, is that they're suited for the sort of processing and simulation of large quantities of objects or entities or agents running at the same time, right? It's performance concern is often one of the reasons why people choose to use ECS, but there's also stuff about the general kind of architecture of an ECS system that makes it appealing, right? At least I think in my view. Another feature I can show here is that if I press 9, it loads up a previous state that I saved when I first started running this build. So there's a saving and loading system that's kind of built in. So if I, for example, go, over here and press 5 to save, then head in a different direction, I can load up that state by pressing 9. And now I'm back here, and all the other entities are in the state that they were when I saved the state, right? So this is all supported kind of automatically. If you use this framework, you define your own components, your own entities, your own systems. You don't have to do anything for the serialization to work with that. It will automatically let you save and load this easily. So, before I show you how to install the package, maybe I'll mention a few more things about what ECS is about and what some other features also that you can use. So ECS stands for Entity Component System. It's kind of a description of what what the point of using an ECS system is, which is that you have basically these 3 different elements to your architecture. Entities are basically just IDs. They just kind of are ways of referring to all the different things that are in the game. They don't have to be game objects. They can be relationships between objects. They can be anything. Components is how you actually define what these entities are. So components are only about data storage. They don't really do anything. They only store your data. And ideally, your components are small and modular. And you define different entities by combining them together. So for example, as you can see, I have some blue friends playing around. Now, they have certain components that have to do with the physics of playing around and the rendering of their little capsules. Now, I control this blue capsule, this player capsule here in front of the camera, and I share all the same components as these other ones. The only difference between them and myself is that they have a AI controlled component and I have a player control component. The third element of an ECS system is, of course, the system, entity component and system. And systems are where all the processing is happening. All the calculations are being done. So the point with systems is they're also ideally supposed to be encapsulated and modular. So for example, there's a system running right now that is concerned with the physics of the flight of kind of these blue capsules, right? So that system is acting on both the component of my player entity here and of these AI capsules, and it does not know what the difference is. It only sees those components, such as the trajectory and the rotation, that are relevant to what that system is doing. It doesn't know about the AI component. It doesn't know about the player control component. It doesn't know either about the rendering components, which is, for example, handled by a different system, which takes care of rendering. Yet another system takes care of AI control, and another system takes care of player control. So one feature I want to show you before we go into the Unity editor is this is all running, by the way, in the build. This is an actual build of the game. It's not running in the editor. And so you can see these fountains here that are shooting out these green cylinders. So everything that gets instantiated into the game at runtime is based on prototypes. And these prototypes, you can think of them kind of like prefabs, you know, but it's like a version of prefab, but for the ECS system. So these prototypes are actually defined in JSON files, and they're loaded at runtime. So what this means is that we support modding kind of pretty easily if you're using this framework, right? Because your prototypes are going to be defined in JSON files, and all we have to do, for example, if we want to modify these cylinders, is I can quit the build here and then go find my, data for my build. And in the streaming assets folder, there's a component formats, which is kind of auto-generated reference files for the different components and their format. But what we want is prototypes, which is where the prototype definitions are stored. So these are all the prototypes that we use in the sample demo. What we want is the one that says cylinder. So we can see the different components that make up a cylinder entity are defined in here. Some of them have defined values, others have default values, the ones without any specified values. The one we're concerned with here is object renderer component, and there's a value called object type. We're going to change this from cylinder to capsule. Now we can save, and let's go back to our build. And if we run it, it'll load up the new prototype definition, and we'll see that in the game, our fountains, which are kind of these invisible entities that are creating what used to be cylinders, are now creating these blue capsules. Now, aside from the render component, everything about these capsules is the same thing as the cylinders were, right? And they do not have, for example, the components that handle things like the movement, the flight of the player and AI capsule, right? Those are just cylinders, but with a different look. Okay, so there's some other features in the editor that I'll show you, but first let's get into how to install the package. So first thing first, of course, is to open here in Unity our package manager. And in the top left here, there should be a little plus sign. If you click it, select add package from git URL. And here we need to find the URL to access our package. So that's very easy. You can go on the GitHub for the repository. And right here, if you click code, you'll get the URL, which you can copy. So once we have it copied, let's go back to our Unity editor and let's simply paste it here. Then click add, which will install the package. Now, before we close the package manager, there's another step that we have to do, which is we want to make sure that we install the sample as well for that little demo I showed you. So after our package is installed, I also show you some nice features that you can use in the Unity editor in order to that are included in the package, and they're useful in order to kind of debug your ECS projects, right? So let's open the little folder here and import our example sample. Now, to load up the sample, we want to make sure that you don't load up the sample scene, which is kind of created when you create a new Unity project, right? The one we want is here in our samples folder, in the example sample, and then scenes. And that's the scene we're looking for, right? So now if we run this scene, we can see our sample is running. So the feature I wanted to show you is that if you look here at the top, there's a new option in the menu bar. Let's click it. It says ECS. Let's choose Entity View. And right now, Entity 0 is selected. And if I start typing a different ID, we can see that I'm accessing different entities. So these first few entities are all the prototypes, right? So you see here the spawner, the road. I can open here's the road, the turning agent, the home, the capsule. But once we get into later ones, we get to the actual entities that are running, right? The prototypes are not actually in the game. They're the sort of templates from which all the others come from. The later entities are the ones that are running right now. If we stop, we can see ECS system not running, right? So the game needs to be, the editor needs to be in play mode for you to use the entity view, right? But I think, let's see if, yeah, so for example, you know, if we get in the thousands here, this complex entity is one of our pathfinding entities here. So you can see that there's some data for trajectory, rotation. It has here a path, which is a list of nodes. So it has like multiple elements in this component. Also has some filter components here. So this is very useful when you're working with this framework and you want to do some debugging, right? One thing I'll show you is, we can find a little player entity here. So if I go in the scene view and select it, it will automatically set the entity ID to the one corresponding. And not only can I easily see what all the values are, I can also change them, right? So if I increase the throttle here, you can see that our player capsule is going forward. If I change the pitch axis, I can rotate. And so, you know, at runtime, you can go into any entity and change things around, right? So I can select one of these cylinders, for example. Now, the reason I can select the capsules and the cylinders is because they have a object renderer component, meaning that they're rendered using a game object that has a mono behavior. So that's why I can select it in the scene view. These are rendered, they only have a mesh component, which is much faster. So that's an advantage. But the scene view doesn't let you select them, but you can still access them as we saw through just typing the ID in there. So you can access all your entities, whether they're selectable or not. So these are the basic features I wanted to show. I hope that you find this video useful. I hope that this is helpful to get you started on using the ECS framework. And thank you for watching.